Today we're going to continue in our study of John's Gospel. We're going to come to the farewell discourse of Jesus. Several years ago, our staff parish committee at Church of the Resurrection challenged me and encouraged me to prepare a sermon on video to play in the event of my death. This was a part of the contingency plan in case I were to die. And it can be a little narcissistic thinking about yourself and your death, but I did try to think, okay, what would I want the people of the church to remember if I died? I've been their pastor 25 years. What would I want them to remember? And I focused the sermon on our mission and our vision and my hopes and dreams for them as a congregation and why we started the church, and really tried to challenge them. This is what I expect you to be about, even in my absence. And when we come to John chapters 13 through 17, we really see Jesus doing the same thing with his disciples. It was the Last Supper, and he's giving his farewell discourse, his final charge to his disciples. Matthew, Mark, and Luke don't talk about this. They just give us Jesus' institution of the Lord's Supper. That doesn't happen in John's Gospel. Instead, he gives them an example, he gives them a commandment, and he gives them a promise, especially in chapters 13 and 14. So the example was he washes his disciples' feet. And this was the role of the humblest of slaves. A Jewish slave was not meant to do this for a Jewish master. It was only Gentile slaves that were called upon to wash the feet of their Jewish masters. And so this was the lowest job one could possibly have. And Jesus takes on the lowest job that one could have, and he washes his disciples' feet. And he says, I've set you an example that you might do what I've done. And he's trying to teach them that our task, if we're his followers, is to live with humility. In the Greco-Roman world, honor was really important. That was one of the highest virtues, was honor. Jesus turns it on his head, and he says one of the highest virtues is for somebody in this station in life to take several steps down and to look to see, how do I serve my employees? How do I serve my coworkers? How do I serve my neighbors? How do I serve my spouse? How do I live a life of humble service? So Paul would tell us that we should think more of other people than we do of ourselves, that we should do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility to think of others as better than ourselves. This is what Jesus is teaching when he washes the disciples' feet. Now, after he washes their feet, he says, I give you a new command, that you should love one another, just as I have loved you. And the example of what that love looks like was the foot washing that he just done. He had just loved them by washing their feet. He says, now what I've done for you, you should do for one another. And when I think about that, I think of plenty of examples I see in my own congregation and how they live a life of sacrificial love. I think of the people who've given the blood drives and the people who've been bone marrow transplant donors. I think of the people who regularly serve in the inner city in mission and ministry. I think of the people on a daily basis wake up in the morning and say, Lord, here I am, please use me today. And when they see somebody who needs a word of encouragement or a blessing or someone that needs them to take a little time to care for them, this is how they seek to live their lives, to love one another, to serve one another. Recently, I was at the movie theater, and I saw one of our members in the men's restroom, and he was in there with another man who was he was paralyzed from the waist down, and he was helping this man. I watched him as he helped him into the stall in the men's bathroom, and then as he helped him get ready so he could go to the bathroom, and then as he helped get him cleaned up, and then send him on his way. And I saw this man's wife sitting outside waiting for him, and I looked at her and I said, I've always admired your husband. But today, when I watched him with gentleness and love caring for this other man in the most humble of ways, my admiration and respect for him went sky high. He modeled for me in the men's restroom what it means to wash another's feet, what it means to love one another as Christ has loved us. And the last thing that Jesus does in John chapter 14, after washing the disciples' feet, is he says to them at the table, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I'll come back for you, that you might be with me where I am. And in my Father's house, there are plenty of places to dwell. There's no shortage of rooms. And one of the things I just mentioned to you here that stands out to me about that is that Jesus says, if I go, I will come back for you. I've been with many people as they were dying, and this image of Jesus coming back for us, that he's the one, not his angels, but that he's the one who stands there waiting for us. And in that moment when we breathe our last, he reaches out and takes his hand and says, come with me. Come to my Father's house where there's plenty of room. I love that picture of who Jesus is. He calls us to serve one another. He calls us to love one another. And he calls us to trust in him and not be afraid, even in the face of death. And that's part of what Jesus said in his farewell discourse to his disciples and to us. So may you live a life of love and service and trusting in him, never afraid, knowing that he's waiting for you. Amen.